Hello, and welcome to Call of the Armor 0% Growths. I did Vision Quest 0 Growths, and Call of the Armor has supplanted Vision Quest as my favorite ROM hack, so I'm gonna do this one too. A couple of things before we get started. First off, I guess I'll talk about 0 Growths in case you haven't seen any of my other series on the channel. 0 Growths is basically units do not gain stats on level up. That includes units who have over 100% in their growth rate, such as Seer, who will join in Chapter 17. Everyone's stuck basically at their bases, plus whatever we can get by stat boosters or promotion gains. As far as what the goal of this playthrough is, I just want to see the end credits. I am not the first person to clear Call of the Armor on 0% growths. As far as I am aware, the first person to do that is Lorez, who will be linked below and in the end card. And you should definitely subscribe because Lorez only has about 50 subscribers at the time of recording, and that is tragically low. Lorez did a Call of the Armor 0% Growths LTC, which I have been told is fucking phenomenal. I have not watched it yet because I don't watch playthroughs of challenge runs that I'm planning on doing. I want to come up with clears on my own. But if you are interested in watching a hyper-optimized, I don't know if it's rigged, but I have to assume that it is, because it doesn't say that it's not. So a hyper-optimized, hyper-rigged, hyper-efficient playthrough on a 0 Growths rule set, then that is where I would point you to. But if you want to watch someone who has the vaguest idea of what she's doing, bumbling through and just barely by the skin of her teeth clearing these maps, that's what I'm doing here. It's going to be a lot less impressive than what Lorez has. So if you like this video and like this hack and like this concept, you're going to like what's on Lorez's channel. I guarantee it. That being said, we are going to start by doing unit reviews, which is something that I do on all of my challenge runs. I like to talk about the units, just sort of give a general unit review standpoint thing. However, I wanted to try something different for this playthrough, so, bear with me. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I think as we go through the playthrough and do the various unit reviews, I am going to place them on a tier list, which I will, pull up throughout as I'm doing that and show y'all where they end up on the tier list, and try to come up with my own personal tier list of Call of the Armor, under my general tiering criteria, which I have a video on the criteria I use for tiering if you're interested in that, and hopefully by the end of it, we will have a tier list for Call of the Armor that makes some amount of sense. With that being said, let's start with the Lord, Kazua. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. I might be pronouncing it wrong. But she is the one who hears the Call of the Armor. She is an armored mage. Well, she's just a Lord, but she's an armored mage. She uses staves and dark magic, and she has the Vortex Comb, which it's a rapier. It's a magical rapier. It has 6 might and 80 hit, which is pretty good, and 1-2 range and hits on res. In general, I tend to find Kazua is, pretty okay. The fact that she is force deployed feels like a benefit more than anything. There are hardly any seize maps in the game. There's a few where she does have to seize, but for the most part, she just ends up being a fairly tanky mage. And when you have access to magic, and therefore inherent 1-2 range and the ability to hit on resistance, being bulky on top of that tends to be a very powerful combination of traits. She also has this unique thing. Well, obviously she has the rapier, or the vortex, which is a rapier, and can therefore be one of the units to deal with armor knights in the early game. Which you do get a hammer fairly early on as well, but it's nice to have options. It is definitely a benefit of her. There's this other really neat trait of hers, which is that you get the Lord's Promotion item at the end of Chapter 4. You actually get it before you get any Master Seals. So theoretically, if you hyper-invest into her in the early game, she can sort of function like a pre-promote, which is pretty nice. And it's not difficult to hyper invest into her because with staff access, she has access to a pool of experience that no one else is drawing from for the first 3 chapters. As a result, she also ends up getting the early game staffing credit. I tend to find in my playthroughs that I've done, she ends up sort of functioning closer to the early cleric than the lord for the first 3 maps. And then of course you do get an actual cleric and you can sort of decide what you want to do with them. But instead she's just sort of like a staffer who can fight and also is pretty tanky. Like 25 HP and 10 defense is very good for this point in the game. The biggest downside that she has is that until promotion, her only weapon type is dark. And dark is not the greatest in terms of the various tomes that we've got. Its accuracy is and as far as I am aware, the only dark tomes that we have in the early game are going to be Vortex, and then eventually we can purchase Flux. We do eventually get more Dark Tomes as we move further on. The S-Rank Dark Tome is very strong. There's also Lunar Cleave, which you can get in Chapter 19. But there's, and you obviously Nosferatu, which really helps with her ability to tank. But as far as the early game, I do think that it is a little bit of a disappointing magic type to be locked into, especially because her skill is only 5. And that in combination with the fact that Dark being kind of the axe of the magic triangle means that it has lower accuracy. So her skill doesn't really make up for the lower accuracy. She can face hit issues. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty high on Kazua. I think that she is a solid contribution to the team, and honestly, she is a decent target for early game experience, which I tend to think that the Chapter 1 squad, by and large, is somewhat weak. So feeding her a lot of experience, either in terms of kills or just like, again, the staff experience, using staves, like spamming the 1 heal staff you have to sort of like top people off in order to get her experience, are both, I think, pretty viable, because then when she promotes, she gets very good promotion bonuses and access to the entire magic triangle. So she can sort of supplement her hit issues by using lighter anima in order to, have better accuracy, and she can also build those ranks and potentially get things like bolting or whatnot. Yeah, I'm pretty high on this unit. I really like her. Next up, let's talk about Shale, the jagen of the game. I think that Shale is the best unit in the game, and I think he's the best unit in the game by a significant margin. So these are his base stats. The biggest downside that he has is 8 speed, and he has a pretty low speed growth as well, and since he's a jagen, he's also not going to be leveling up very much. 8 speed is fine for the early game. He will actually double quite a lot of things in the first 3 chapters, but then you do get to the point where he starts, the way that he quote-unquote falls off is he starts not doubling. Fortunately, he has 15 base strength, which is a lot. And since he has access to axes and bows, he has the option of the strongest 1-range weapon type, or 1-2 range if you use hand axes, and effective whip damage against flyers. Now, there's not a lot of terrifying flyers in the early game. There's some flyers in Chapter 5. I think Chapter 5 is the first map that has flyers. There's a couple of wyverns that can be pretty difficult to deal with, TBH. And then you get some Pegasuses in Chapter 7, I want to say. But this isn't a game where you end up with like, oh, I want a lot of bow users because there are a lot of scary flyers. This isn't like Engage, where there's like terrifying Pegasuses as early as Chapter 3 and pretty frequently in outdoor maps or something. But the fact that he has access to bows, and not just any bows, but A-rank bows, is very nice for him. First off, it means that he has the longbow at base, which we can't say about our other archer, Floor. But second off, you get the S-rank bow, the Great Arc, in Chapter 3, in a village in Chapter 3. And that, in combination with his very high strength, can really supplement his kill power and make it so that even when he's not doubling, he can start one-shotting. Now, eventually, even that is not going to be enough to one-shot, but thankfully, he's the jagen. He can hit enemies weak enough that you can have your little scrunklies get the kills. He doesn't need the experience, his stats are good enough, and they do need the experience because their stats are not good enough. So he can sort of like combine with others for kills, and honestly, that's kind of beneficial because you want to grow other units. That being said, I still think Shale is a near auto-deploy in most playthroughs for the entirety of the game, and part of this is that he has a secret event that happens in Chapter 19. I mean, I say secret event, it happens based on him being deployed, where he will, he'll max out his HP and Constitution, which is more of an annoyance than anything because it makes him hard to rescue. And then he'll get a 13-use personal weapon that is 2-3 range and effective against monsters, and very high might. So that, again, supplements his kill power. It lets him be incredibly dangerous against Cyclopses, dragons, various monsters that can be quite difficult to deal with otherwise. Shale is fucking phenomenal. Shale is fucking phenomenal, and yeah. Easily the best unit in the game, to the point that I think in the tier list that I will pull up after I go over everyone, I actually have a tier all to Shale's self, and I think no one other than Shale is going to end up there. Shale, unfortunately, despite the fact that he is such a great unit, and I'm incredibly happy to use him in every single playthrough, and he will be in the Zero Growths playthrough, play a major part because, you know, if he's the best unit in the game in vanilla, then removing growths, which is his like biggest weak point, is just gonna make him better. But I do think he's pretty bad design, and the reason for that is I feel like, to a degree, he invalidates some of the Chapter 1 units, and that's why the Chapter 1 squad feels so bad. So, the next two units I do kind of want to talk about as a pair, and that is Sjord and Youngblood. So Youngblood is the strong fighter, and Sjord is the fast fighter. See that he has 8 speed, but he only has 7 strength, as opposed to 9 strength and 6 speed. And if I could show you their growth rates without them being zeros, that would also reflect in terms of Youngblood having higher strength growth, and Sjord having a higher speed growth. This is unfortunate, because Sjord has E-rank axes. If Sjord did not have E-rank axes, he would kind of be just, like, strictly better than Youngblood. But as it stands, Sjord is probably worse than Youngblood, because he's stuck on the Iron Axe, whereas Youngblood can use he gets D-axes, he can use the hammer that we get in Chapter 3, as well as steals earlier, and he's just farther along in the weapon ranks, so even if you want to, like, use a long-term unit, him being farther along is helpful. I find that weapon rank does not build fast enough in this game for most units, just because it's a fairly short game. It's only 20 maps. A lot of the maps are pretty short, and a lot of units are only doing flunky work on those maps, and so as a result, they don't see a lot of rounds of combat, and they don't get in a lot of weapon rank. So Sjord being stuck at E rank, or starting at E rank, is a real detriment to him. Now, in terms of, like, the strength and speed, you'll notice that Youngblood really only has, like, a minor strength lead, right? I would much prefer to have the speed lead of Sjord. So if you do want to invest in one of these two, I do think Sjord is probably the better of them, just because it's nice to have access to a warrior who can double. Although, I guess Sjord goes warrior, in my opinion. I think Sjord wants to go warrior, because he doesn't really need the speed bonus you would get from hero, whereas Youngblood probably wants to go hero because his speed can be a little bit lacking. That said, I would not recommend using either of these units long-term. I think that they are kind of just filler units for a couple of maps, because, yeah, perfect availability is... it's not a huge thing, but it is something that they have that other units don't, and Call of the Armor tends to be a game where a lot of units just sort of are around for a couple of maps and rotate out. Youngblood and Sjord are around for the first, like, 3 or 4 maps, and then if you get lucky with level ups, if you like what you see, you can keep them around. They'll be, like, filler. If you don't, I think they just sort of rotate out. They bow out in favor of some of the stronger units who will join in later chapters. The fact that they are axe fighters, and Shale also uses axes, in my opinion, makes them feel pretty bad, and the reason for that isn't like, oh, one of every class, because you can use multiple warriors, and in fact, I usually do use multiple warriors. The big issue is that the first 1-2 range weapon you get is a hand axe. Now, if these were soldiers, or if Shale was a non-axe class, like a ranger or something, right? Then they would have the benefit of access to 1-2 range before the jagen does. And I think that would be a pretty cool way to sort of hold the jagen back from being such an over-centralizing unit. As it stands, however, when you get the hand axe in Chapter 2, there's really no reason to give it to either of them. Sorry about that cut, I had something in my throat. But yeah, Youngblood and Shale, like, they're far from unusable. This game doesn't really have unusable units, but I'm not a fan of either of these guys. I think they end up just sort of being filler units for a couple of maps. And it is disappointing that, like, Shale sort of denies them of their, he steals the good axes from them, right? Even as early as Chapter 2. Next unit that we have that Shale also kind of steals from is Floor. Floor is an archer, and she has 1 more point of speed than Shale. The big thing is that her speed growth is higher, so if you do invest in her and try to train her up, she can start doubling things, whereas Shale is... Shale and Floor are going to double basically the same things in the early game. But if you start investing in Floor and trying to, like, train her up, she'll start doubling some things that he can't. And that is beneficial. However, her strength is so much lower that oftentimes if they're using bows, well, she's using bows, but if he's using bows as well, their damage output will be close to identical to each other, just because, like, he has a 9 strength lead on her. And that's only, like, their damage output will only be identical, or close to identical, if she doubles and he doesn't. Otherwise, he just, like, outdamages her by a significant amount. The biggest downside to Floor, the biggest way that I feel like Shale really just... I'm not a fan of his design and the way that it affects the Chapter 1 squad. Floor starts with E-rank bows. Now, this means that Shale, who is a bow-based warrior, which I do think is cool, I love that from a design perspective, he can use the longbow and Floor cannot. This feels really bad. I think that Floor should have started with D-rank bows, personally. I think her being unable to use the longbow at base really makes her feel like just a lot worse than she is. I'm not high on her. I don't think she's a particularly good unit. You can invest in her, like you can invest in any unit in Call of the Armor, just because everyone is usable to a degree, and perfect availability is nice. But she is stuck just using bows until promotion. And then you can go ranger with her. You can go sniper if you want, but you shouldn't. You can go range with her, and she has access to light brands for 1-2 range. And she has access to a horse, and she can still use bows if you want. And she can use swords if you want. She needs to use swords to get the light brand, but she can use swords, like, if you want 1 range, right? That being said, it is a pretty long journey to the point where she actually has something over Shale. And that's something being the horse and being access to swords and potentially the light brand. To hit on res with 1-2 range. I really don't like this unit. I used her in a playthrough, and it's like, you invest in her, she turns out fine, right? She turns out as a decent contributor to your army. But bows are, especially in this game, really a niche role. You don't want, like, an army of 5 or 6 bow users. This isn't like FE6, where there's, like, dangerous wyverns in some of the hardest maps of the game, and you just want a lot of people who can shoot down those wyverns. And so, like, you know, training nomads, training warriors, or whatever, can give you the benefit that way. I think that in this game, bows tend to be a pretty niche option. And you do get a couple of other potential candidates for Nomad or for Sniper later on. And, you know, all of them do have their problems. A trained Floor is probably better than the other candidates, but you could also spend that experience training Kazua, you could spend that experience training the other 2 units we haven't talked about, or you could use that combat to train Shale's bow rank. Because Shale incentivizes you to want to train his bow rank, but he doesn't have an iron bow. And you kind of don't want to waste longbow uses just attacking enemies that you could attack with an iron bow because you want to train bow rank. I find that oftentimes I'll just hand the iron bow from Floor to Shale. Now, you can get a second iron bow on this map, and that is, I think, intended to be Shale's iron bow, but, like, I don't know. If he started with an iron bow and a longbow instead of this guy dropping it, I think Floor would feel a lot better to use. Because otherwise, I just don't see, I don't see she just feels so bad, is the thing. She just feels so bad. Again, very usable, available all game long, and she can eventually get a horse, but if you put in the work. But there's a couple of other experience candidates. I mean, we've talked about Kazuna, we talked about Shale being like weapon experience candidate, right? And then we've got, of course, Noki. The early game Pegasus is always a good experience candidate. She is the early flyer, and she has the stats you would expect on the early flyer. You know, Chapter 1 flyer, she has flying utility for the entire game. She has very little bulk, 3 defense, 22 HP. She has decent combat in terms of like her speed being high enough that she'll double a lot of stuff, although worth noting, she only has 1 more speed than Floor and 2 more speed than Shale, so she does need some training before she has like a noticeable speed lead. She does have a very good speed growth, and she will be faster than Floor and Shale if you train her, but her base is not, this isn't like a Shanna situation where she's just doubling everything at base because she's got so much higher speed than everyone around her. Like, Shale's problem is that he is slow, and Noki has 2 more speed than him. So, like, it does take some time for her to have a noticeable speed lead over other people. I find that her strength is often somewhat lacking, and that can hold her back in terms of, like, her combat potential. But she's the early flyer, like earlyflyer.exe. Early flyers are good, early flyers are always going to be good. At the very least in GBA for rescue dropping utility, and Noki has plenty of opportunities to do some rescue dropping and be good in that way. And the last member of the DK crew is Fernandez, and generally knights are not very good in GBA, just because they are slow, they fill a niche that you often don't need to fill, because I find that you're often playing more offensively than defensively in vanilla GBA, just because the games aren't difficult enough to want you to have like a choke pointer, and 4 movement is a really big detriment. Thankfully, Fernandez has 5 movement. Armor Knights in this game have 5 movement. Generals also have 5, they did the engage thing. But before engage, so, you know, Team Distant Roads did it first. Not as snappy as Kaga did first, but it is still true. And then, obviously, you have the option to go Great Knight, which gets you 6 move and Canto. So basically an infantry with Canto if you go that route. And that is the route you should go. Just because you still get the weapon triangle, so, like, there's not really a benefit to General. General's pretty bad. Fernandez is pretty bulky. 5 speed, so he's, like, slow, but, doesn't really matter because this guy never fucking dies. He has 11 base defense, and his defense growth is high enough that he's just going to maintain impressive physical bulk for the entire game. Now, there does come a point where you value offense more than defense, and you do get other units who are, like, bulky enough, and as a result, like, I've used Fernandez throughout the entire game, and I think he's very usable throughout the entire game, but he doesn't double anything, and in fact, he often gets doubled by things. So his speed is just like, he's never going to double things. He's going to, as a result, struggle to secure kills, because unlike Shale, he does not have the insanely high strength and insanely high ranks to get kills by one-shotting. Now, he can, if you, like, potentially, like, you know, like, take kills that someone has set up for him, or he can, like, use expensive weapons like the Killer Lances. There's a lot of Killer Lances you get access to in this game, and fairly early as well, and Silver Lances, and the S-Rank Lance, I think it's called the Pursuer, no, that's the Fate's Bow, but you can use high caliber weapons to make up for the fact that you're not doubling. But at the end of the day, it is still a detriment. Like, there are units who can get kills without using high caliber weapons. And unfortunately, once you get around, like, chapter 13, 14, he's not one of them. Now, he does have Canto, if you promote him, and he, like I said, he never fucking dies. Unless it's to mages. Like, he has no resistance and very fucking piss poor resistance growth. So when I say he never fucking dies, I mean to physical enemies. But that is a very important role in the early game, especially if you are trying to sort of take the map slower and train some of the weaker units that we will get access to that we potentially want to train. I like Fernandez a lot. I think that of the early game squad who's not Shale, Noki and Fernandez are, well, and Kazua, are the most notable of them, with these three kind of feeling middling. And Noki and Fernandez also, I'm not, like, as sold on them as, like, I am on... I mean, Shale is just fucking phenomenal. But let's take a look and see where they end up on the tier list. Okay, so we are going to start by having Sergerd attack this soldier down here. And then I will have Floor and Youngblood team up to kill this soldier to the left of Sergerd. Despite the shit that I've talked about these three units, I do really like all of their battle palettes, at least their unpromoted ones. And Floor is a ranger I have used long term. I haven't turned either of the fighters into warriors or heroes. If I do another playthrough of this hack, then I probably will. Anyway, I am gonna have Shale steal that iron bow so that he can kill this guy here. And then we do want to get rid of this mage, because as I mentioned with Fernandez, like, he doesn't fucking die unless he faces a non-physical unit. I think we'll have him... Okay, we can have Fernandez and Kazua team up for this kill. How does she do here? So she takes 3 from this guy, 4 from this guy, and potentially this peg could attack her. I'm gonna have Fernandez set up the kill because I do want to try and power level Kazua, just because that promo bonus, like, if I can get that promo bonus early on, it would be very nice. One thing that I actually neglected to mention is that Vortex can serve to patch up accuracy a little bit, because it does have 80 accuracy, which, you know, makes it better than Flux. So I'll go ahead and do that. We do have a treasure in the bottom chest that a thief is going to start going after, which is part of why I do want to be aggressive punching down to that bottom boat. God, Shishore, you can't dodge? Really? You can't dodge, buddy? That is a little disappointing, I'm not going to lie. Okay, can you dodge this one? I know you live, but still. See, this guy, I tells you, this guy. Alright, so will Shale double the soldier? No, he does not. So what we can do, so we can set this kill up like so. Get it with the iron bow. If I can have Floor... Can we kill this Pegasus, first off? 10. He can get to that square, which is not great. And not having access to the Pegasus, to the thingy. I could longbow this guy, actually. The problem is... I need Sergerd to retreat, right? Because if Shale goes here and longbows this Pegasus... How does Fernandez do against the archer? Not great. If Noki goes here... 8... We're already in a rough situation. And it's mostly my fault. I could heal Sergerd. heal Sejord instead, and then have these two combine to kill the archer. Make him not a problem anymore. I kind of like that idea, actually. The problem then becomes, I do want to kill this peg as well. And I don't know that that's actually happening. Okay, what I could do... Move Sejord up here so he can get healing. Because Kazuna can reach that square, yeah. So move Sejord up here. Have Kazuna heal him. We kill the archer with the combination of Fernandez and Noki. I guess if I'm giving experience to anyone, it makes sense to get it on Noki, because, like, flyer.exe, like, she's probably going to be around longer. Yeah, Fernandez is going to be helpful in the early game because of his bulk, but probably not beyond that. There we go. Good girl. Murder that archer. Alright. And then what we will do is we will Iron Axe this Pegasus, and then Floor can kill the archer. She can take her bow back from Shale. And that, I think, is our best course of action right now. We'll just sort of pass the bow around until we get that second one over to this squad. Ooh, wait. Okay, no, Noki not doubling is actually good, because it means she doesn't take an additional attack. Okay, so Shale can shoot down that Pegasus by stealing Floor's iron bow. Oh, okay. Never punished. Holy shit. Holy shit. actually crazy. So Shale can steal the iron bow and shoot down the Pegasus. There we go. I do want to get to this thief, just because he's gonna get to the chest and then he's going to escape down there. So we can do this. Very good. Now he's not a problem anymore. Kazua can heal up Floor, and Floor can head down to potentially block the staircase while she's unarmed, question mark? Can Noki can't get the iron bow over there, can she? No. No. Okay, so I'll have her just go. Fernandez also is gonna just go, because there is a shaman showing up soon. Yeah, everyone else just run down. Okay. Yeah, Floor won't be in range of anyone. She can potentially block the staircase, to stop the thief from escaping. This is a very scuffed Chapter 1 clear. Normally, my Chapter 1 clears are a lot better than this. It's funny. Every time I play Zero Growths, I feel like my Chapter 1s are incredibly scuffed, which is, like, not how it should be. Like, Chapter 1 is the time when it most represents what you would consider, like, quote-unquote vanilla. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So Flora can block the stairs here. We can trade the additional iron bow to Shale. And then heal up Noki. Fernandez can just, like, keep retreating towards the bottom right. And, I think that soldier, like, yeah, he outruns the soldier because of the 5 movement. I don't actually know where the thief is gonna go. I'm usually, like, much more aggressive and am able to kill the thief rather than having to escape block him. So I don't know what he's gonna do next. Could be anything. So we'll move Youngblood down here. I'll put Shale in range of the mage with an iron bow. Or actually, I can... no, because he doesn't reach. Yeah, I'll put Shale in range of the mage with an iron bow equipped. Actually... the thief could steal, because he's 11 speed. The thief could steal from anyone, actually, a vulnerary, which would be very tragic. And honestly might be what he does. Let's grab that. If he steals the vulnerary, he no longer drops the light rune, which I would like that light rune. It's very useful for chapter 2. This is so scuffed. Why is this so scuffed? Oh, and I equipped the longbow too, because I attacked the thief. Why is this so scuffed? Okay, where's he going? Okay, he's stationary. So now Floor can actually get a weapon. I'll give her the 39 use one, though. There we go. Can Shale kill the thief? Yes, he can. If he hits, which 85 is likely to. Okay, and then we will trade, an Iron Axe onto him with Youngblood. I'll have Kazuna kill with Vortex. And then, yeah, I'll trade an Iron Axe onto Shale, and we can sort of treat this like a choke point. Especially because the boss has a fancy little Lance Reaver. Currently equipped. Okay, I think we strike back now, right? What a dingus. We can potentially make a second wall here. We just hole up on this ship. You know, this ship was boarding us, but we've now boarded this ship, and this is our defensible position. We've decided. Bonk. And the fact that Youngblood isn't doubling the soldiers is actually quite helpful, because it means that Shale can get the kill with an iron bow next turn, which is much appreciated. So we'll go ahead and do that. Bada bing, bada boom. And this soldier... okay, this soldier can only reach to there. AS of 9, AS of 8. So what we can do is kill this guy with Noki in order to tempt him into keeping the Lance Reaver equipped, so we can have our axe dudes wreck him. Seems good. We'll heal up Fernandez, and then move Fernandez one to the right, and make sort of a staggered barrier with Kazua, in order to keep the shaman and soldier at bay, while also not having the shaman attack Fernandez, and move everyone else like this, and I think we just end turn like this. We're in a very defensible position. Okay, he keeps the Lance Reaver equipped. Very good. His boss quote is even about the Lance Reaver, which is very funny. The Lance Reaver's gonna cut through us like butter. This guy is a little goober. There's no real explanation for his obsession with Lance Reaver, other than, you know, Lance Reavers are cool, I guess, is the explanation. Which honestly, yeah, GBA Reaver weapons are quite cool. I agree with this assessment. I find it to be true. How does Fernandez do against the Shaman? Like, can we still hold this line? He takes 12. I mean, that's... yeah, that's workable. I think we move Noki here. We heal up. Kuija is good for another turn. Because she'll take... because she has 4 res, 10 defense. So she takes 8 plus... yeah, so she takes 8 plus 3, she takes 11. She's at 14. Okay. So next up, can we kill this guy with Shale with a bow? I think the answer is yes. So we'll have Floor chip him down, and then Shale kill him. We are feeding our jagen kills, because this is important. 0% growths, everyone. Although, honestly, I think in vanilla, feeding Shale kills is also good. For the same reason. By the way, we're not allowed to use this, because it'll give everyone +5 to their growths. That said, I think it's very cool that we get Metastomes in Chapter 1. Especially because there's a trainee who joins next map, which is, you know, I think the best recipient of it, or at least the most fun recipient of it, but you can give it to whoever you want. If you want to train one of the little skunklies that I dunked on, like, they're very trainable, they're very skunkles. Ooh. I was about to be excited that we had dodged an 80, but then we also, missed an 80. So, you know, easy come, easy go. Alright, so he's going for Fernandez. That's fine with us. Fernandez is not getting doubled yet. So what we can do... Shale, how do you do here? Oh my god. I did just talk about how Shale doubles the same people's floor, and then this soldier proved me wrong fucking immediately. That said. Pew pew! He's still doing that. He's still doing that. I think... Alright, you go here. We'll heal you up. And then... she is... it's the same health as last turn, so she is still fine. And we can potentially feed one of these kills to her and one of these kills to Shale. Or both to her. If the other guy attacks Kuija, then we can feed both kills to her. Although I think he's going to attack Fernandez, yeah. We can have Kuija heal Fernandez and then Shale kill the Shaman. I think is probably the best course of action, especially because raising Kuisha's staff rank is also beneficial. Again, both in vanilla and here. I find that Kuisha is one of the earliest people to hit A in stats. See, look, he's doubling too. Like, their speed is not that far from each other. It's 1 point. That guy just happened to make the difference. Anyway, that's Chapter 1 of Armor and Oceans. Join me next time for Distant Shores.